Hi, this is Marcus Guiliano from MarcusG.tv. I'm a chef on a mission. Today's topic, salt. As a chef, I was taught that salt is a necessary ingredient to bring flavor and liveliness to savory foods and even sweet foods, because chocolate and salt goes really well together. So salt was like one of the most basic things that I was taught as a chef, going through culinary school and working for other chefs. It was interesting because we always use kosher salt. Kosher salt's that thicker salt. You know, chefs like that because they can grab it and it has more substance to it, and they feel they can control it, as opposed to table salt or iodized table salt, which is the really fine grind stuff that you really can't pick up in your hands. Because chefs, you know, we're hand people. We don't take a salt shaker. We take our hands in the salt and then throw it on the steak or wherever, or the soup or whatever we're seasoning. So kosher salt was what I was taught to cook with. Then all of a sudden sea salts became popular 10, 15 years ago, and those were up and coming. Now, I have some current news on salt, which really isn't current news because I'm a huge advocate of consuming salt. If any of you have seen my other blogs before, I even have a blog where I make something called Soleil, which is a salt and water solution that sits on my windowsill, and I advise taking 1 teaspoon of that in the morning, dropping in a glass of water, and drinking that to charge your body. And some people say, well, gee, salt is not good for you. Well, you're right. Certain salt is not good for you. In fact, most of the salt on the market is not good for you. But there are a couple salts that are highly, well, let's read the article. This article came from Dr.Mercola, who I admire and read his stuff all the time. I think he's really on top. M-E-R-C-O-L-A, Dr. Mercola. Go to his website. He has a daily feed, newsletter that you can subscribe to. It has tons and tons of important information that'll make you healthier. I promise. The stuff is great. So good job, Dr. Mercola. Rachel, what do we have?
Avoiding this forbidden food could make you moody.
Salt, yes.
Salt is an essential for life. You cannot live without it. Salt has been important to humanity for life on this planet. Even the word salary comes from salt.
Right.
Because Romans were paid in salt. African and European explorers traded an ounce of salt for an ounce of gold. Salt was literally worth its weight in gold.
That's an interesting point.
Unrefined natural salt is important to many biological processes including being a major component of your blood plasma, lymphatic fluid, extracellular fluid, and even amniotic fluid.
Amniotic fluid, very important. Now, I always say that salt is extremely important for women to conceive. It's impossible to conceive unless you have a 1 to 2% salt solution in the womb, which means we're born in a Soleil, the same stuff that I'm drinking in my windowsill every day.
Carrying nutrients into and out of your cells, helping the lining of your blood vessels to regulate blood pressure, helping you regulate propagation of nerve impulses, helping your brain send communication signals to your muscles so that you can move on demand, sodium-potassium ion exchange. Having outlined the importance of salt, it is important to realize that too much sodium can hurt you, but the same can be said of most things, even oxygen and water. Indeed, there is far too much sodium in processed foods, but you shouldn't be eating those foods anyway. High sodium is but one of many ingredients in processed foods that will ruin your immune system and cut your precious life short.
So let's go to the salts of the earth next, because salt is different. All salt's not created equal, and this is where the controversy comes in. All salt is not equal.
As it turns out,
because you're right. When your doctor says salt is bad for you, the salt he's talking about is bad for you.
As it turns out, salt is a very general term that can mean many things. All salts are not equal in terms of origin, chemistry, crystal structure, biological effects, or even flavor.
Flavor is important. There's a big difference in flavors of salts. Being a chef, I would know that because I've gotten to experiment with all types of sea salts and salts from around the world.
That's really cool. Chemically speaking, a salt is simply an ionic compound arising from the joining of a positively charged ion and a negatively charged ion, so that the product is electrically neutral. When people talk about salt, they are usually referring to refined table salt.
Exactly.
Or sodium chloride.
Sodium chloride. That's sodium chloride's not. Is what you want to avoid.
But in fact, most minerals are salts, including magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt, and ammonium nitrate used in fertilizers.
Okay. Now, by the way, you can you can buy condensed seawater now and use it to start, when you plant a fruit tree or something, do a base with the condensed fruit seawater, because it has all the rich minerals in there, and plant that and put that as you plant the roots, and discharge the minerals right there. Really incredible stuff from what I haven't personally done it, but there are websites you can buy condensed seawater.
That's really cool.
And it helps the plant grow.
We used to, in Miami, when I was growing up, if I ever had a cut, we always used to
go to the ocean.
Go to the ocean, and
Yep.
it used to make it it's very healthy. But with typically edible salts, most people do not realize there are enormous differences between common refined table salt and natural unrefined salt. One is health damaging and the other is healing.
Exactly. So and I know a lot of doctors who say no salt, no salt, no salt. Then it's just that your doctor doesn't know the benefits of a high mineral salt that's really raw, charged. The Himalayan stuff has 84 ionic minerals in it. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
When your doctor says salt, avoid salt, they don't know about this salt. If you were to take this work from Dr. Mercola, the printout on his website, and take it to your doctor would probably say, okay, interesting, okay. If the doctor's open to it, he'll be more into it. But typically, the salt they're not talking about is not this salt.
Alert. Natural salt is 85% sodium chloride and processed salt is 98%. Ordinary table salt undergoes a great deal of processing between the factory and your grocer. It is approximately 97.5% sodium chloride and 2.5% chemicals such as iodine and moisture absorbents, dried at over...
When it rains, it pours. Thus then.
1,200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Salt is dried at 1,200 degrees. That makes high quality sea salt, because all salt, it's coming from the earth. So you can start with high quality sea salt and have it refined and heated and processed, and it's junk. It's table salt. It's no good. So don't get tricked by the word sea salt when you start buying sea salt. Do not get tricked. You have to look for unheated, unsolared sea salt. But there's a specific salt that I personally like to use.
This high heat alters the natural chemical structure of the salt. By contrast, unrefined salt is 84% sodium chloride and 16% other natural occurring minerals.
So that's a big difference. 16% minerals. The other salt has no minerals, except for so-called iodine. So 84% sodium chloride and 16% naturally occurring minerals. The salt that we use here at the restaurant, 84 ionically charged minerals. It's Himalayan salt. The idea is the salt is up on higher levels, 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet up in the Himalayan mountains, where there's no pollution. A lot of oceans are polluted now, as we know. Talked about the dead zone yesterday. Talked about BP oil spill, as we all know. It's a nightmare. So try getting, salt from an ocean source is kind of tricky.
Right.
So this is mountain salt, which was originally sea salt. It's been packed into the mountains. Mountains rose. They've been sitting there for millions and millions of years, and they've been absorbing sunlight, eons of sunlight, which is supercharging this salt.
Right.
Then they go up there, and the brand that we use, which I love this brand, American Blue Green, the Symphony brand, there's no machinery in the mines when they mine them. They don't want to disturb the vibrational frequency. And then it's ground by stone, hand ground by stone. There's two ways to properly grind salt. Both are by hand, you want to look for ceramic or stone ground. Those are the two types. You never want salt to sit in a salt grinder with metal blades, because then it's going to start extracting the nickel and other harmful things out of that stainless steel, that metal blade. So the question is, I'm not sure what most salt companies use to grind their salt. Are they using metal? Are they using, I really don't know, but I know the salt that we use, I can call and ask these questions and speak to somebody, and they have a research doctor on there, and they've done, it's actually, the salt that we use here has gone through medical studies, 2-3 medical studies. They can actually make medical claims, like lowering your blood pressure and things like that. So it's really interesting. A whole list of things. Now, the adulteration of table salt, You know, basically goes on the article, says ordinary table salt is chemically cleaned, is sodium chloride, and the article goes on really good. It says every gram of excess sodium in your body has to neutralize, uses up to 23 grams of cellular water. Hence, eating too much common processed salt will cause fluid to accumulate in your tissues. What contributes to unsightly cellulite, arthritis, gout, kidney and gallbladder stones. You know, processed salt also sometimes contains potentially dangerous preservatives. So you know, this is really serious stuff. When they say salt's bad for you, they're talking. This is the salt they're talking about. They're absolutely right. What happens is when your body ingests salt or any other toxin, your body knows that it's a toxic substance. What do we do? What do our bodies do? They have to excrete this toxin somehow. Medications are a huge thing. The doctor gives you a water pill to take away, you know, the effects of taking the first medication. Your body knows it's toxic. Your body packs on water weight to dilute the toxin. It's as simple as that. That's what happens. You get rid of that bad salt, you're going to lose weight. Let's see. And here's interesting. Hypertension, we'll talk about this later. Hypertension is driven more by excess sugar than excess salt. I've always been saying this. You eat sugar, you're going to stress your body out, and that's not good for blood pressure. People say, oh, I'm not eating any salt, I still have high blood pressure. I'm like, duh, look at the sugar in your diet. And people just don't get that correlation, so it's really good that he mentions that. Next topic in here is, can sodium be too low? Absolutely. You need, like we said, that 1% to 2% Soleil solution in the womb for women to conceive, else you can't get pregnant.
Right.
And then the salt that he goes on is called Himalayan crystal salt. You know, it's the same premise, maybe even the same brand that we're using here. But why salt? Why you should consume salt? Absolutely consume salt. Enjoy it. Use the good stuff. It's going to cost you about $30 for 2 kilos. So it's just, 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds of this good salt. Costs around $30, but you're not going to use it that much. You know, it's not like you're throwing a cup of salt in. It's not like in the restaurant here we use, you know, a cup of salt a day. Could put it in water to cook vegetables, cook pasta, you know, to season stuff.
Salt is one of the cheapest commodities.
Well, it is, but not this salt.
No.
Not this salt. This salt is, you know, we're talking $15 a pound on average.
Right.
That's more than filet mignon. That's more than most people. But you're not taking 8 ounces and using it at a time like a filet mignon. You're sprinkling it on your food. So get the right salt. If you have any questions, hit me up with comments here. I'll send you links to the salt that I personally recommend. Marcus Guiliano, MarcusG.TV, Chef on a Mission.